TDLR. Girlfriend has asked for a document of my needs in the relationship as she has given me one shaped by her complex post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and depression. I don't want to give one because I don't think I need the same amount of help that she does. Nor do I face the same struggles and don't want to, but don't know how to tell her without her thinking. I don't want to be with her. I do, but I just don't need the same amount of help she does, and don't need to write it down. We have been going out for about 5 weeks. However, we knew each other several months prior to this. She had initially rejected me when we first met, as she was not interested in seeing anyone at the time due to severely suffering from what I stated above. We parted ways and then met months later, and she told me that she was ready to try a relationship again, and we have been going out. I knew of her complex post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and depression several months prior, as we had a 7-hour conversation after meeting through friends months ago. And she mentioned she had this and didn't go into detail about it, but is quite transparent about mental health as she believes in breaking the stigma. She has since told me about how difficult her day-to-days can be because of it once we first started dating, officially weeks ago, and has handed the document detailing her needs, and also emphasizing that her illness is hers, and that I should not feel responsible for trying to fix her, as only she can do that, but that there will be days when she won't be able to leave the house, will need help to do chores and groceries, and feel the need to run away, and will need to talk through her anxieties, etc., etc. I was more than happy to receive it, as I want to do whatever I can to make things easy for her, but less so when she asked one for me too, despite her insisting that this is an efficient and healthy way to have a relationship. I told her that I've been struggling to write anything down, and she told me to just write down a couple of things, and we can add to it as the relationship goes on. And even if we break up, then it's a good document to have for the next girl. The thing is, I don't need the same level of help that she does. And I tried telling her this, but she shook her head and said that we are all a product of what we have experienced and have needs shaped by it. And this is a healthy approach. So sit down and think about what you need from me, because you do need things from me, and I want to give them to you and vice versa. I agree with this in theory, but I still don't think I need to execute this in practice. But is it healthy of her to insist on it for me when I don't need it in the way that she does? None of my friends have been through this before, and they do tell me that she is very mature for doing this. And I completely agree, but I'm reluctant to do it as I literally never experienced this as a requirement until her. I do agree with needing something written from her to help her in the relationship, but I don't think I need that same help as she does. Now, for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. That's a lot this early on. I might try to reframe it in your mind if you want to continue this relationship. Rather than look at this as a request that you ask her for help, maybe think of it as her asking you what your expectations are in a relationship. If I were to think of what I need from my wife, it would be things like honesty, companionship, strength when I should falter, care when I am weak, friendship, humor, occasional indulgence. But also that we operate as a team and face life as it comes together. These, of course, are things that I want to provide my wife with as well. Maybe by spelling out what your needs or expectations are from a relationship, you're actually helping her. They don't have to be anything crazy. Comment 2. I think you're missing the point of why she is asking. She's looking for you to A, communicate, and B, be open to these kinds of topics such as mental health, self-betterment, etc. Right now, you're doing neither. Everyone can learn about themselves. Think of past relationships. What did you realize you appreciated or didn't like? Build out from there. If you're uncomfortable being too vulnerable at this point because it's too early, share more surface level and build up to more intimate things later on. But don't just say no. She's making a bid for connection. If you aren't able to self-reflect or feel uncomfortable with communicating your needs, find a therapist and learn to work on it with their support. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, a lot has happened since my last post, and I've got quite the update for you all. So, after I shared my concerns about writing down my needs, things took an unexpected turn. My girlfriend, let's call her Emily, was really insistent on me making that list. She said it would help us understand each other better. I was hesitant, but I didn't want to upset her, so I decided to give it a shot. I sat down and tried to think about what I needed from her. It was tough because I've always been the kind of guy who just goes with the flow. But then I started thinking about my past, the things that shaped me. I remembered how my parents' divorce when I was a kid made me value stability and peace in a relationship. So I wrote that down. I also added that I needed space sometimes to do my own thing, as I've always been pretty independent. When I gave Emily the list, she was over the moon. She said it was a big step for us, but here's where things got steamy. She wanted to celebrate our progress and suggested we have a special night together. It was amazing, and for a moment, everything seemed perfect. The next day, however, Emily's mood had changed. She was quiet and distant. I asked her what was wrong, and after some prodding, she admitted that my need for space made her anxious. She was worried that I might want to leave her like her ex did when he asked for space. It was a jaw-dropping moment because I never thought my need for independence could be seen as a bad thing. We had a long talk, and I reassured her that needing space didn't mean I wanted to leave. It was just part of who I am. Emily seemed to understand, but I could tell she was still uneasy about it. A few days later, I came home to find Emily in tears. She had been going through some old photos and memories had resurfaced about her past traumas. I did my best to comfort her, but it was clear that she was struggling more than usual. Then came the biggest surprise of all. Emily confessed that she'd been feeling overwhelmed by the idea of having to meet my needs. She was so focused on her own healing that the thought of having to support someone else scared her. It was a confrontation I never saw coming. I was stunned. I never wanted my needs to become a burden for her. We both cared for each other, but it was becoming clear that our relationship was turning into something neither of us was fully prepared for. Despite the tension, we tried to keep things normal. We went out with friends, watched movies together, and shared meals, but there was an unspoken tension between us that we couldn't ignore. Finally, Emily sat me down and said that maybe we rushed into this relationship. She still had a lot of healing to do, and she felt like she couldn't be the partner I deserved. I didn't want to accept it, but deep down I knew she had a point. We decided to take a break from the relationship. It was a bittersweet moment because we still had strong feelings for each other, but we also knew that we had to work on ourselves before we could be together. So here I am, a week later, single again. I've been reflecting on everything that's happened. I've realized that even though I don't have the same struggles as Emily, I still have my own issues to work through. And maybe, just maybe, writing down my needs wasn't such a bad idea after all. Wife invites coworker over and hides his flirty moves. But when he crosses the line and stalks, I get a restraining order, and then we discover she's pregnant as he gets arrested. As you know, this is a throwaway account, and I feel like I have nowhere else to turn but Reddit. A couple weeks ago, I went home to visit family, and my wife was very serious about not going with me. I expressed multiple times about how much it would mean to me, but she had a dinner planned with some friends, and I didn't want to spoil her fun. During the night of her dinner, she and her friends were drinking and having a great time. She was her normal self and texting me being flirty after a couple drinks. Later on in the night, I get a Ring notification and see she invited our best friends over. Just one couple, our age. But she didn't tell me she was inviting anyone over. Not the biggest deal. I just genuinely care about what she's doing, and especially who's in my house while I'm out of town. I bring this up and she's telling me, oh, sorry, I didn't think it was an issue that people came over. Now I'm back in town after seeing my family, and she randomly brings up that at the dinner one of her coworkers was maybe flirting with her. She's not good at telling when people are flirting, and explains that he kept staring at her and bought them shots to take. So I hesitated and said, yeah, that's flirting, but thank you for telling me. Then naturally I thought about it. What else happened that night? Since in the past she's told me things but kept out a lot of key details and lied to my face about them. So I asked, what else happened that night? And she said nothing and got defensive like she was withholding information from me. So that raised some red flags. Finally, before posting, I felt like I had enough and texted one of her friends who went to the dinner and come to the house afterward. basically asking about the guy and the situation. I told her friend what she had told me about the dinner, and he agreed to that happening, but also mentioned she invited him over to our house after the dinner to hang out with all of them. And later that night, he was texting her trying to hook up. Now, this raised a red flag because she never mentioned this to me, only that he hit on her at the dinner. I didn't know this, and he seemed very surprised that she only told me about the dinner situation. Then he sent me screenshots of their group chat. They used to all be co-workers, and she flat out sent them screenshots of the texts and said, "Not him trying to hook up with me." But in those texts, she gave him our address and continued texting him all night long while being flirty with me at the same time. Now she didn't seem to be flirty with him or say anything bad over texts to play on the fact that he was trying. But why not tell me? What do I do? Am I overreacting? Do I bring it up to her? Now for a few comments before the update. Comment 1. Your wife is withholding information. She is lying by omission. She is trickle-truthing you. I mean, you said that this is who she is, and this is how she acts. So it's not good behavior. But why are you surprised when you have described that this is who she is? You need to solve the root of this problem. You need to sit her down and tell her, "Honey, I don't like playing detective or chasing you. I know that you are lying about the night I was out of town. You are lying about inviting other men over. Our marriage is deeply broken right now. I can't trust anything you say." And you decide whether that means intensive therapy or divorce. Comment 2. Am I overreacting? No. Based on your description, it sounds like she was at least trying to start an affair cheat. What do I do? Assume the worst to protect yourself. Know that this isn't the first time she has done this, only the first time you've caught her, and that they had unprotected intimacy contact. Get STD/STI testing immediately. Consult several divorce attorneys in your area to know what rights and options you have. Even if you choose not to divorce, you need to know what choices you have. Do I bring it up to her? Only if you want to be lied to again. Now, for the update. Hey everyone, thanks for the support on my last post. I never expected to be back here with an update, but here we are. After I found out about my wife's coworker trying to hook up with her, things got even more complicated, so I confronted my wife about the texts. She was shocked, her face went pale, and she immediately started apologizing. She admitted that she enjoyed the attention, but swore nothing physical happened. I wanted to believe her, but trust is like a mirror. Once cracked, it's never the same again. A few days later, I was still feeling uneasy about everything. I decided to do some digging into her past, which I know isn't great, but I needed answers. I found out that during her college years, she was known for being the life of the party. It wasn't just about having fun. She thrived on the attention from guys. It was a pattern that I realized was resurfacing. Then, the news dropped. Our mutual friend, the one who had sent me the screenshots, called me. He was hesitant at first, but finally spilled that after the dinner, the coworker did come over. They all hung out, and after a few drinks, things got heated. My wife and the coworker ended up alone in our bedroom. He didn't know what happened, but he heard them talking in hushed tones before he left. I was floored. I confronted her again, and this time, she broke down crying. She confessed that they had kissed, but insisted it stopped there. She said she felt guilty immediately, and that's why she didn't go further. I was torn between the love I had for her and the betrayal I felt. In the midst of all this, our best friends were going through their own drama. Turns out, they were on the brink of divorce. They had been putting on a facade for months, pretending everything was fine. It was a wake-up call for me. I realized that no relationship is perfect, and everyone has their secrets. I decided to give my wife another chance, but with conditions. We started couples therapy, and it was intense. We dug up old issues, like how I sometimes felt neglected because of her social life. She admitted that she felt I was too controlling. It was a rough few weeks, but we were making progress. Then, another twist. My wife's coworker didn't give up so easily. He started showing up at places he knew she'd be. It was borderline stalking. My wife was scared, and I was furious. I confronted him and it got ugly. We had a shouting match in the middle of the street, and it ended with him threatening to tell everyone about their kiss if she didn't leave me for him. We were both shaken by the encounter. My wife was remorseful and scared of what this guy could do. I was angry, but also protective of her. We decided to file a restraining order against him. It was a stressful process, but it brought us closer together. Just when things seemed to be settling down, life threw us another curveball. My wife found out she was pregnant. We had been trying for a while, so it should have been happy news. But the timing was terrible. The doubts crept in. Was the baby mine, or was it a result of that night with her coworker? We had a long, emotional talk. She swore the baby was mine, and I chose to believe her. We decided to keep the baby and work on rebuilding our marriage. It was a bittersweet moment. We were going to be parents, but the shadow of that night lingered over us. As the weeks passed, we grew closer. The therapy was helping, and the restraining order kept the coworker at bay. We started to plan for the baby, turning one of the rooms into a nursery. It was a time of cautious optimism, but life is never that simple. Just last week, my wife's coworker violated the restraining order. He showed up at her office causing a scene. The police were called, and he was arrested. It was a jaw-dropping moment, seeing him being taken away in handcuffs. My GF lies about hooking up with our mutual friend and wants me to meet him. But her ex tells me she cheated with multiple guys. So I bond with the friend over being deceived. I, 40-year-old male, have been dating this girl, 35-year-old female, for about 2 months. A few weeks ago, we were talking about our past relationships. She said she broke up with her last boyfriend, Mike, of 2 years in May 2023 and then moved to my state in August 2023. I asked her if she had any dates or hookups after she moved to my state. She said she went on a few dates, but nothing came of it and that she hadn't hooked up with anyone since her breakup. Very well. This past weekend, we were talking about her ex-boyfriend, Mike. She said Mike was always very suspicious of her cheating with a close mutual friend of theirs, John, but that it was unfounded and likely due to the fact that Mike abused marijuana, which caused him paranoia. She is still friends with Jan, and he is supposed to be moving to our state at some point, but said she has no attraction to him as a partner because he is kind of a deadbeat, marginally employed, bounces around, etc. I asked her if she ever hooked up with John, and she said yes. I asked when, and she said they had intimacy sometime in the fall of 2023 after she moved. Okay. So I called her out on the lie, and she became embarrassed and apologetic. I asked if she ever cheated on Mike with John, and she said no. She tried to explain the hookup away, that it was a huge mistake. They were intoxicated, and it just happened one night after the move. John helped her move last year. She also said she didn't want to tell me initially, because she knew I would meet John at some point, since he is moving here, and wanted us all to hang out. She also said she didn't intend to hang out with John without me, and would break contact if it made me feel better. I was obviously quite mad and hurt about her lying. I don't care if she hooked up with someone after her breakup. I care about the lying. Then I started thinking that Mike really did have a reason to be suspicious. After all, they did end up having intimacy. Furthermore, maybe she did cheat on Mike with John at some point. But when I asked her if she had ever hooked up with John, she had to admit to something, but chose to admit they had intimacy at an acceptable date, i.e. after the breakup and the move, which wouldn't constitute cheating. So maybe she forgot the initial lie that she didn't hook up with someone after the move to cover up the bigger lie, that she cheated on Mike with John while they were still together. Finally, the fact that she wanted me to meet John at some point, and that he is moving here, feels absolutely wrong to me, and quite sociopathic on her part. This happened a few days ago, and I'm still processing it and deciding what this means to me, and how I should proceed with her. So people of Reddit, I ask for your advice on what I should do here. Part of me wants to forgive her and move on, and part of me sees this as a huge red flag, so early in the relationship. It just sucks because we've had an awesome relationship so far, and both really see a future together, which at our age seems to get more difficult. Thanks for your advice. Now, for a few comments before the update, comment 1. I have no idea how you could possibly move past the fact that your girlfriend specifically lied to you about the last guy she had intimacy with because she wanted you to meet him and hang out with him. That's a complete disqualification in my book. I can't imagine the things she would be okay glossing over later in the relationship if she was willing to try and put this one past you. Move on. Comment 2. Lying about her hookup behavior and a guy she's hooked up with, and telling you her previous boyfriend was paranoid about her shady behavior. Leave her in the streets, bro. She'll only lie to you to keep her friend if she knows she can lie to you repeatedly and you'll do nothing. Now for the update. Hey Reddit, it's been a week since I last posted about my girlfriend's lie regarding her hookup with John after her move. And boy, do I have an update for you. Buckle up because things got messy. First off, let me fill you in on some backstory that I didn't mention before. My girlfriend, let's call her Sarah, has always been the type to keep her past close to her chest. She told me once that her relationship with Mike was rocky because he was the jealous type, always checking her phone and questioning her about who she was with. I thought Mike was just being paranoid, but now I'm not so sure. So, after I posted last time, I decided to give Sarah the benefit of the doubt. We had a long talk and she swore up and down that the hookup with John was a one-time mistake and that she never cheated on Mike. She even agreed to cut ties with John if it made me uncomfortable. I thought we were moving past it, but then things took a turn. A couple of days ago, I ran into an old friend who happens to know John. He casually mentioned that John had been bragging about hooking up with Sarah multiple times after she moved here. My stomach dropped. I confronted Sarah, and after a lot of denials, she finally admitted that it wasn't just once. They had been seeing each other casually for a month before she met me. I was furious, not just because she lied again, but because she had been so convincing when she promised it was a one-time thing. It felt like our whole relationship was built on lies, but wait, it gets worse. Yesterday, I got a message from Mike, of all people. He found me through social media and wanted to warn me about Sarah. According to him, Sarah had cheated on him with not just John, but with multiple guys. He even had screenshots of texts between Sarah and these guys that were timestamped during their relationship. I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was like a punch to the gut. When I showed Sarah the messages, she broke down crying, saying that she was in a bad place back then and that she's changed. But how could I trust anything she said now? I felt like a fool for believing her and for thinking we had something special. And just when I thought things couldn't get any more complicated, John showed up in town. He had the nerve to text me, asking to meet up and clear the air. I agreed, more out of curiosity than anything else. We met at a coffee shop, and John was all apologies, saying he didn't realize Sarah and I were serious, and that he wouldn't have come between us if he had known. But then he let slip that Sarah had told him she was having doubts about our relationship because of my trust issues. That was the last straw. I left the coffee shop feeling like I was in some twisted soap opera. I had trusted Sarah, and she had played me the whole time. I was ready to end things right there and then. But here's where karma comes into play. Remember how Sarah was worried about me meeting John because she thought we wouldn't get along? Well, it turns out John and I had a lot more in common than she thought. We both had been lied to and manipulated by the same person. John and I ended up talking for hours, not about Sarah, but about our own lives. We actually hit it off, and by the end of the conversation, we were laughing at the absurdity of the situation. We even made plans to hang out again, without Sarah, of course. As for Sarah, I haven't decided what to do yet. Part of me wants to just walk away and never look back. But another part of me is still processing everything. It's a mess, and I'm right in the middle of it. If you like this video, you'll probably like these too. Also, while you're here, please consider subscribing. It's your support that keeps this channel alive and allows me to make better and longer videos. Have a great day.